I'm very concerned that our society is much more interested in information than wonder, in noise rather than silence.
Have you ever wondered why the world is louder than ever before, yet somehow it still feels emptier? We're surrounded by content, opinions, and updates, but beneath the surface, real connection is slowly dying. Mr. Rogers saw this coming decades ago, and he tried to warn us. The common story you've probably heard, especially about my generation and younger, is that we're all addicted to our phones, and that is a big part of the reason why a lot of us feel alone. But what if our loneliness was never about the technology in the first place, but a symptom of something much, much deeper? Something that started long before even I was born. We built a culture that rewards speed, noise, and performance, whilst punishing patience, presence, and sincerity. That's the world that Mr. Rogers warned us about, and it's the one we're currently living in now. For almost a year, I've been exploring the past to understand how generations before mine lived, connected, and cared. And in all that searching, a few people have stood out to me, like Mr. Rogers, a man who seemed to predict almost everything that we're struggling with today. So in this video, I want to peel the lens back to see how we got here, what we've lost, and why it matters more than we even realize. Because what Mr. Rogers tried to protect was more than just a moment in time. It was something timeless about how we connect, listen, and care.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
It's 1968. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood goes national, reaching such a success that not even Mr. Rogers himself saw coming.
I mean, who would have ever thought that somebody would want my autograph, you know, or want to take my picture? That wasn't what I was in it for. This all evolved, you know, that's what's so interesting.
You see, in the 1950s, television was the newest wonder of the modern world. Glowing screens in living rooms bringing laughter, music, and chaos into millions of homes. But most of what people saw was noisy distractions, variety shows, slapstick comedy, and endless advertisements. Even then, corporations had already figured out how to turn attention into profit, selling us glamour and gimmicks at the cost of sincerity. Now, Fred Rogers saw this early on. While everyone else saw television as entertainment, he saw it as potential, a powerful tool that could either numb us or nurture us.
And I saw this new thing called television, and I saw people throwing pies in each other's faces. And I thought, this could be a wonderful tool for education. Why is it being used this way?
It was that very frustration, his contempt for what television was becoming, that made him pause his plans for seminary and step into this new medium instead. Not to join it, but to change it. But you see, things didn't start off too good at all. No. When joining this world of television, Mr. Rogers would quickly face many challenges that will come at a big, big cost.
We had a budget for that of $150 a week. And Josie made $75 and I made $75, and so anything that we bought, we had to buy out of our own pocket.
That's generally how the whole program came to be. We had to do with what we had.
When Mr. Rogers started at WQED Pittsburgh, one of America's first community-run stations, he wasn't stepping into an established system. He was building one from scratch. No budget, no sponsors, just a piano, a few puppets, and an idea. That television could do more than just entertain, that it could also nurture. What he wanted to do wasn't popular. In fact, it wasn't even profitable. But you see, with all these trials and tribulations, I believe this is where we first see Mr. Rogers get really tested. And it's in this moment where I believe he really shows his first noticeable signs of grit, resilience, and innovation.
We had a clock put on the set with a little hole, and we were going to get a bird to come out of the clock, and the bird was going to say, it's 5:02 and Columbus discovered America in 1492, and then he was going to go back in. Every day he was going to come out, give a fact, go back in. And because we didn't have time to get a bird, Fred shoved Daniel out the hole and said,
Hi, Josie, it's 5:02 and Columbus discovered America in 1492.
And then just went right back in. And that was the first thing that he said, and I had no idea that he would say any more.
In many ways, Daniel symbolized Fred Rogers himself, gentle in a world that celebrated noise. I think this was the moment Mr. Rogers learned one of his most valuable lessons, that even in a world full of distraction, that quiet honesty could still hold an audience's attention. Because soon in his career, there would come a time where he would have to defend this belief. This moment was crucial in deciding the fate of children's programming for decades to come. But there was a problem. The television world that Miss Rogers had stepped into was ruled by people who knew how to play a very different game. One built on ratings, advertising, and spectacle. And no matter how sincere he was, authenticity alone wasn't going to be nowhere near enough to topple these giants. He needed something more, a deeper understanding of the people he was trying to reach. So while producing the Children's Corner, Rogers began taking classes at the University of Pittsburgh, studying child development. And it was there that he met Dr. Margaret McFarland, the woman who would quietly become one of the most important figures in his entire career. It's through her that Mr. Rogers learned that the key to truly reaching children wasn't performance, it was presence.
I've always felt that I didn't need to put on a funny hat or jump through the hoop to have a relationship with a child.
That to speak to a child, you first have to understand their inner world.
And Fred, I think this is the real difference between your program and most television for children, that it is less a show for children and more real communication with them. And I think that's the reason when the children see you, they run up to you and throw their arms around your legs and call you my Mr. Rogers, and anticipate that you would recognize them as they recognize you. And that's the only way I understand that, is that to the child, the television program between you and the child is a real relationship.
Margaret McFarland wasn't just a psychologist. She became Fred Rogers' mentor, guide, and compass. And she entered his life during one of the most formative eras in modern child psychology. For the first time, experts were beginning to see children not as a problem to be fixed, but as people with emotions, fears, and inner worlds of their own. Under Dr. McFarland's guidance, Rogers learned that what children needed wasn't more excitement, it was understanding. Not entertainment, but empathy.
Tomorrow, we'll start the day tomorrow with a...
Like many of you watching this now are starting to realize, it was here that he found the heartbeat of what would later become Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. The simple, radical belief that feelings are mentionable and manageable. Now, this understanding in kids' psychology was critical. In fact, many will say that this was the main driving force behind the historical moment where Fred Rogers would appear before the US Senate Commerce Committee in an attempt to convince them to not cut essential funding required for the survival of national public television. This was do or die.
I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health.
Mr. Rogers didn't stop there. You see, even in this next clip, you really see him utilizing the lessons that Margaret McFarland taught him about how essential his real communication was to his viewers, especially in contrast with the entertainment-centered programs that were ubiquitous at this time.
I think that it's much more dramatic that two men could be working out their feelings of anger. Much more dramatic than showing something of gunfire. I'm constantly concerned about what our children are seeing. And for 15 years I have tried in this country and Canada to present what I feel is a meaningful expression of care.
And when you combine the authenticity and passion that Mr. Rogers already had, as we saw all the way back in the children's corner, with the deeper understanding of children's psychology that Margaret McFarlane embedded in him, he was able to pull off the unthinkable.
I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days.
Mr. Rogers would go on to tell John Pastore the lyrics to one of his most popular songs from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And in this moment, the outcome was inevitable.
For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
See, this was a historically significant moment because if Fred Rogers was not able to win over John Pastore, then this would have meant the end of PBS, resulting in no Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, as well as many other culturally significant programs like Sesame Street, and dozens of other educational programs may have never existed. Decades later, it feels like the world Fred Rogers was trying to protect is slipping away. Trust in our media, our leaders, and even our icons keep collapsing, scandal after scandal, lie after lie, and now with the rise of AI, even reality itself feels unstable. We scroll through faces, voices, and stories, never quite sure what's real or who is. Meanwhile, we're bombarded with noise, notifications, clicks, colors, endless distractions pulling us further and further away from what matters. And instead of addressing the root, we keep blaming the apps, the algorithms, and the phones. But the truth is, what we're seeing today with an increasingly antisocial and anxious generation wasn't something that was created by these apps. No, it was something that these big tech companies capitalized on. At this point, our culture was already trading depth and connection for convenience and authenticity for performance. And unfortunately, it's only now we're starting to notice. That's what Fred Rogers saw in television all those years ago. A powerful tool being twisted into noise. But you see, this is where things get real. Because even if you understand the problem, that is only just the beginning. Because if we fail to act on these things, nor bring it back to the things that keep us human, things are only going to get worse. And in some ways, for Mr. Rogers, it did. Because once you start going against the grain, you see, the people up top tend to not like that.